I'm Miss Kirk, and I am here with another lesson about one of our toolbox tools. Today we are going to be learning about our personal space tool. Our personal space tool. Our personal space tool says, I have a right to my space, and so do you. So let's talk a little more about what personal space is and how we can make sure that you get your personal space and I get my personal space. So when we talk about personal space, what we mean is that bubble around us. Sometimes we make this motion to show what is our personal space because it's that area around us that's ours. It's our personal space. Very good. So sometimes we call it a bubble because we make a little motion like that, kind of like a circle, or some people use a hula hoop to show that space around you. And that can show you which part of the air is mine, right? That's my personal space. Has anyone ever said to you, get out of my personal space, or I don't like you being in my personal space? Yeah, maybe someone said that to you. Have you ever said that to someone? Maybe somebody was getting into your space and you didn't like it. It started to make you feel uncomfortable. Maybe you told them to get out of your personal space. Yeah, if you have ever said that to someone or someone has ever said that to you, then you know what personal space is. And you know why it's important, because sometimes we do start to feel uncomfortable if somebody gets into that space around us that we consider ours, that is our personal space. Now, here's the tricky thing about personal space, is because it changes. That might sound funny, but if you think about it, if you're with your mom or your dad or your grandma or your grandpa or someone you know really, really well and you feel really, really safe around, think about it. Do you think you need more personal space around those people or less personal space around those people who you know really well and you feel really safe with? What do you think? Do you need a lot more space? You want them to be further away from you? Or can they be a little closer to you? Yeah, if you said closer, then you are right, because usually those people that we love and that we feel really safe around and that make us feel good, it's okay if they get into our personal space. For example, they might give you a hug, and that's getting into your personal space. Or they might cuddle with you on the couch watching a movie at night. That's in your personal space, but it's okay because you feel safe with them, they love you, and it feels pretty good sometimes to let someone who you know and who you trust into your personal space. But then there's those people that when they get too close into our personal space, it doesn't make us feel good. It makes us feel kind of icky. And that's why having our personal space tool is important. So we can remember, I don't want you in my personal space. That doesn't feel good. But we can also remember not to get in someone else's personal space if they don't want us to, if it doesn't feel good for them. Good. So that personal space can change if it's someone we know really well, if it's someone we trust, if it's someone we feel safe with, then maybe that circle around us might be a little bit smaller. But if you're at a store, think of your favorite store. Maybe your favorite store is Target, or maybe the grocery store, or maybe the game store. So say you're at your favorite store and you're looking at something, you're going to pick something out to buy, and somebody comes up and stands right next to you. Would that make you feel good or not so good? Probably not so good, because they're in your personal space. You don't know them, they're strangers, and you're at a store, and then all of a sudden they get way too close to you. That can make you feel uncomfortable. In that situation, you need a little bit more personal space, right? And so in that situation, what could you do? Should you just start screaming and yelling at them? No, that's probably not the kind choice. What could you do? What would be a safe, kind, respectful way to respond if you're at the store and someone gets really close to you in your personal space? Think about it for a second. If you have an idea, say it out loud. One idea that came to mind for me was I could just move. Maybe I could just start looking at something in a different room, walk down a little ways. Solves the problem. They might then still get in your personal space again, and then you might need to say something using that strong and respectful voice that we talk about to say, I'd really like it if you wouldn't get in my personal space. Thank you. You don't have to scream and yell, but use that strong and respectful voice to stand up for yourself. Yep, you could do that if walking away didn't work. Great, very good. So there are times when our personal space might be small. There's times we need even more personal space. There are times that we might have a big area of personal space. For example, if you go to the park, it's a big park. There's places to run, there's basketball courts, there's a splash pad like the park behind our school. There's all sorts of things there. There's lots of room. Do you think then you would have a small area of personal space or a pretty big circle around you of your personal space? Probably a bigger circle around you because it's a big area. Exactly. So you're going to have more of your own space. But if you're in the car with your brother and your sister and your grandma and your grandpa, is your personal space still going to be as big? No, it can't be that big because you're in a car, so you might have a little bit smaller of an area. Very good. So we talked at the beginning about how we've all probably felt that feeling of someone being in our personal space, and we kind of felt inside like, this doesn't feel right. I don't like this feeling when you're in my personal space. And we talked a little bit about some kind and respectful ways to respond if someone's in your personal space. And that's really important to remember because when someone gets into our personal space, it's really easy just to react and maybe yell or push them away or get really frustrated. And that's that moment that we might want to use our breathing tool. Take a deep breath in through our nose, out through our mouth, and think about a safer and more respectful way to respond. We can still say something. We can still say something to advocate for ourselves to get that person to not get into our personal space. But when we use that breathing tool, we're able to stop, breathe, and then calmly respond. Hey, I'd really appreciate it if you would get out of my personal space. Or, hey, I feel kind of claustrophobic. Do you mind scooting over a little bit? Whatever you want to say, but in a calm, respectful way to ask them to give you your personal space. So I want you to think for a second. I'm going to not say anything for a couple seconds, and I want you to think how you would respond in a kind, respectful way if someone was in your personal space. And then I want you to practice saying that out loud. So pretend like you're in that store, someone's gotten into your personal space, it doesn't feel very good, and you want to ask them kindly and respectfully to get out of your personal space. Practice saying that out loud now. Good. So maybe you said, could you please get out of my personal space? Or maybe you said, I'm feeling kind of uncomfortable. Do you mind moving? Whatever you said is great. I want it to sound good for you. I want you to practice saying it. So the next time someone gets into your personal space, you're ready to kindly and respectfully ask them to respect the area around you that is yours. Now, real quick, let's go back to our personal space tool. Remember, it says, I have a right to my space, and so do you. So we've talked a lot about how you can make sure you get your personal space by kindly and respectfully asking someone to please stay out of your personal space. But our personal space tool also tells us that other people have a right to their personal space. So if someone were to say to you what we just practiced saying, hey, you're in my personal space, do you mind leaving? What could you do? Scoot over, yeah. Say, oh yeah, sure, sorry, I didn't mean to. Yeah, exactly. So just like we don't want to scream and yell if someone gets in our personal space, we don't want to scream or yell if someone asks us to get out of theirs, because they have the right to the space around them, just like we have a right to the space around us. So remember that too. Very good. So let's talk about a couple more examples before we finish up today. We already talked about an example at a store or an example with someone we love. What about if you have a really close friend? You've been friends with them a long time, they're one of your best friends, and they fell down and got hurt. Is that a time that you would need a lot of personal space, or is that a time that it would be okay to get into their personal space and check on them? What do you think? Think about it for a second. Say it out loud if you think they need a lot of personal space in that situation, or maybe just a little. Okay, so maybe in that situation, it's okay to get in their personal space because maybe you need to check on them and make sure they're okay, or maybe they need help getting up, so you're going to reach down and help them stand up, so you might get into their personal space. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a time that we might be able to get into their personal space. Or if you can tell your friend really needs a hug, they're maybe crying or upset about something, that might be a perfect time that you could say, hey, do you want me to give you a hug? Do you need a hug? And then you can get into their personal space. But we always want to follow their lead. And if they're acting like, I need my personal space, we want to respect that. Good. What about if you are at let me think, like a baseball game or a football game or something like that? Is that when you should get really, really close to the people there, or do you want to kind of respect their personal space? Probably want to give them a little bit more room there. That's strangers, you don't know them, and you want to be respectful of their personal space, kind of like our store example. Good. And the last thing I want to talk about before we end our toolbox lesson for today is right now, personal space is kind of different. Does anyone know why, when we think about our personal space, it's a little bit different right now? Yeah, if you said because of COVID or the coronavirus, you're right. Right now, because of COVID, we're trying really hard to be 6 feet away from people, to socially distance from them so that we don't spread germs. And that's really, really important to keep us all healthy and safe. So it's important for us to wear our masks, and it's important for us to stay that 6 feet away from strangers right now. So right now, our personal space bubble is a little bit bigger than maybe normal, right? And so we want to make sure we respect that as well, because we want to keep everyone healthy and safe and not spread any germs that we don't have to spread. So our personal space bubble's a little bit bigger right now, where usually I would love for students to come and give me a big hug or high fives or maybe shake their hand when I meet them. Right now, that's not safe to do, so we're not doing that. I do waves or thumbs up, those sort of things, but trying to stay out of their personal space and stay out of mine so that we stay safe and healthy. So that's something to think about too. All right, well, we are just about done with our lesson for today. My challenge for you is the next time you are at a store or a restaurant or a game or anywhere, pay attention to how much personal space you need and how much other people need. Because the more we pay attention to how much personal space we need, the more that we'll respect each other's personal space. And don't forget that I have a right to my personal space, and so do you. Make it an awesome day, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye-bye.